We have to understand something fundamental about how change and growth actually work. The nervous system doesn't respond to what you say you want. It doesn't respond to your dreams, your complaints, or even your intentions. It responds to what you do, what you repeatedly do. That's where real plasticity comes in. And the world operates the same way. It responds to demonstrated behavior. Not potential, not talk, not hopes. You can tell people all day about what you're going to achieve, what your plans are, how hard things have been, how much you care, but none of it matters until it's expressed through repeated action. The brain and body don't adapt because you thought about it. They adapt because you moved, because you took physical, measurable steps. Neural pathways get reinforced through effort and execution, not through discussion or storytelling. Think about the mechanism of muscle growth. If you go to the gym once, lift a few weights, and then spend the rest of the month talking about it, nothing happens. But if you go every day, or even 3 times a week, you create micro tears, force adaptation, and over time, those muscles get stronger. Not because you want them to, but because you gave your body a reason to change. It's the same thing with discipline, with focus, with skill. Your body is constantly scanning for patterns. When it sees consistency in effort, especially under stress or fatigue, it flags that behavior as important. It says, okay, this seems to be essential for survival or success. Let's make it easier to do next time. That's neuroplasticity in action. But if your actions are inconsistent, if you're all talk, if you're stopping every time it's hard, you're teaching your system the opposite. You're reinforcing fragility, not resilience. The external world isn't much different. People don't pay attention to potential for very long. They might listen once, they might encourage you at the beginning, but if there's no follow through, they move on. And they should, because talk is cheap. Everyone has goals. What separates you is whether you show up when it's boring, when you're tired, when no one is clapping. That's what builds credibility, not just with others, but within your own system. Consistency signals seriousness. It tells your brain, your body, and the people around you that this isn't just a phase, it's who you are. And when you consistently show up for yourself, you start generating internal momentum. You become the kind of person who follows through, and your brain starts optimizing for that identity. Suddenly, hard work doesn't feel like suffering. It feels like alignment. It feels like home. So forget about being understood. Forget about waiting for someone to notice your potential. Show them your proof. Show yourself your proof. Consistent action rewires your brain, reshapes your outcomes, and removes the need for external validation. You become evidence of your own transformation. That's how you earn respect from yourself and from the world. Focus is not just a mindset. It's a biological process. It's governed by systems in your brain that are finite, trainable, and easily hijacked. You need to understand this if you want to operate at a high level, because focus is not something you either have or don't have. It's something you spend. And like any limited resource, once it's depleted, your performance drops, your clarity fades, and your progress stalls. When you focus, you're activating circuits in the prefrontal cortex, one of the most energy-demanding parts of your brain. It's responsible for deliberate action, goal pursuit, and suppressing distractions. But it can't run indefinitely. The more decisions you make, the more tabs you leave open in your mind, the more conversations you entertain, the more that resource drains. And when it's gone, you default to low-effort automatic behavior, scrolling, snacking, quitting. Your brain has evolved to filter out noise so you can lock in on what matters. That's called selective attention. But in a world designed to fracture your attention, that system is under constant attack. Every notification, every unnecessary meeting, every moment you toggle between tasks, it's costing you more than just time. It's degrading your ability to go deep on anything. And depth is where all the growth is. We know from direct neurobiological research that dopamine, the molecule that drives motivation and learning, is tightly linked to focus. When you concentrate deeply on a task, you build up dopamine in the circuits responsible for reinforcement. That means you don't just get better at the task, you make it easier to focus the next time. But when you split your attention, when you multitask, you dilute that reinforcement signal. You weaken the learning. You blunt the momentum. So what does this mean practically? It means that every time you allow your focus to be interrupted, you're not just wasting a minute. You're training your brain to be distracted. You're normalizing chaos in your neural circuitry. On the flip side, every time you resist distraction, every time you stay with one task deeply and completely, you're building circuitry for elite level concentration. That's not hype, that's biology. This is why protecting your focus has to become sacred, not optional. You don't just wake up and hope you can concentrate, you engineer your environment to support it. You block off time, you turn off alerts, you train your mind like you would train a muscle. And you don't compromise, because every compromise is a message to your system that focus doesn't matter. If you want to do work that lasts, you need to guard your attention like it's life or death, because for your future, your health, your goals, it is. The quality of your life is downstream of the quality of your focus. You don't need more hours, you need more precision, more depth, less noise, one thing at a time, fully. And when you treat focus like the rare fuel it is, it starts working for you instead of against you. Every single experience you have, every thought, every repetition, every habit leaves a mark on your brain. Not metaphorically, literally. Your nervous system is plastic. That means it's constantly rewiring itself in response to what you do repeatedly. You are not fixed. You are not stuck. You are being shaped every day by what you choose to focus on, react to, and practice. What you practice, you become. Neurons that fire together wire together. That's one of the foundational laws of neurobiology. The more frequently you engage a thought or behavior, the stronger the connection between the neurons responsible for it. Think of it like a trail in the woods. The more you walk it, the more defined it becomes. Eventually, it becomes the default path. Easy to follow, automatic. That's how habits are built. That's how identity is built. If you practice discipline, if you show up when it's hard, if you move forward in discomfort, your brain starts to recognize that as the norm. You build circuits for effort, for resilience. You become neurologically wired to push forward. But if you practice avoidance, distraction, self-pity, your brain adapts to that instead. And here's the truth. Your brain doesn't care whether what you're practicing serves you or not. It just reinforces what you repeat. So when you say things like, I'm not focused, I'm not confident, I'm lazy, realize this, that's not who you are. That's who you've trained yourself to be through repetition. And the good news is, because the brain is plastic, you can train it differently. You can change the input and therefore change the output. It starts with small, deliberate choices repeated consistently over time. Learning a new skill, becoming more focused, building better habits, all of it depends on this principle. Neuroplasticity isn't a magical process. It's demand-driven. Your brain adapts in response to pressure, to friction, to effort. If you keep avoiding the hard thing, you're signaling to your brain that it's not necessary, and it will stop allocating resources toward that area. But if you lean in, if you struggle productively, your brain reorganizes itself to support that. This is why intention without action is useless. You can read every book, watch every video, journal every morning, but unless you're putting your nervous system into a state of focused engagement, nothing changes. You don't rewire thoughts with more thoughts. You rewire them with behavior, with practice, with experience. So ask yourself, what are you rehearsing every day? Are you practicing distraction, procrastination, comfort, or are you practicing discipline, focus, courage? Because your brain is watching, it's listening, and it's adapting. Every experience matters because every experience is either reinforcing who you want to be or who you're trying to leave behind. You don't become extraordinary by accident. You become it by choice, by repetition, by consciously putting your brain in the environments and states that drive growth. Practice wisely because you are always becoming something. The question is, what? Discipline is not a trait you're born with. It's not encoded in your DNA like eye color or height. It's not reserved for the naturally gifted or the genetically advantaged. Discipline is a system, a process built through repetition, through effort, through doing the hard thing over and over until your brain adapts to it. It's less about who you are and more about what you've trained yourself to tolerate and repeat. We need to let go of the myth of talent. Talent may give someone a head start, but it doesn't sustain long-term progress. What sustains it is effort under pressure. What sustains it is consistency, even in the absence of motivation. That's discipline, and it lives in your nervous system, not your personality. You build it by exposing yourself daily to controlled discomfort. From a biological standpoint, discipline is about your brain's relationship with resistance. When you wake up early, train when you're tired, or push through mental friction, you activate circuits in your prefrontal cortex responsible for top-down control. That means you're overriding impulses, delaying gratification, and aligning your behavior with your goals. Every time you do that, you strengthen those circuits. You make it easier the next time. You don't just endure, you adapt. That's how the system works. You repeat the behavior and your brain says, okay, this is important. Let's make it more efficient. It starts optimizing your neurochemistry and neural pathways around that task. You go from forcing yourself to do something to craving the structure it provides. And that shift, when the effort becomes the reward, that's where discipline truly locks in. But if you wait until you feel like it, if you wait until it's convenient, you're training the opposite system. You're reinforcing impulsivity, avoidance, weakness, not because you're flawed, but because that's what repetition does. Your nervous system doesn't have a moral compass. It's not judging your choices. It's just reinforcing the ones you make most often. This is why discipline isn't about intensity. It's about frequency. Anyone can be motivated once. Anyone can push hard for a day, but the ones who change, the ones who dominate, are the ones who learn to show up with precision and repetition regardless of mood. That's not magic. That's neurobiology. And it's available to anyone willing to suffer just enough to teach their brain what matters. You don't rise to the level of your intentions. You fall to the level of your systems. And those systems are trained, not gifted. Every time you think, I'm just not disciplined, reframe it. It's not that you're incapable. It's that you haven't practiced it enough yet. The discomfort is the path. Not a problem, not a glitch, but a signal. Your brain adapts to what you repeatedly do, especially under resistance. So give it something real to adapt to. Talent might open the door, but discipline kicks it down. And you build it one choice, one repetition, one effort at a time. Most people think motivation comes from winning, from achieving something big, from praise, followers, outcomes, but that's backwards. Real, sustainable motivation is not something you chase. It's something you generate. And you generate it through effort, through doing the work, especially when the work is hard, boring, or invisible. If you rely on external results to feel driven, you've already lost because results are delayed. But effort is immediate. And your brain is built to reward that if you train it correctly. There's a system in your brain, specifically involving dopamine, that controls motivation, drive, and pursuit. Dopamine is not just the pleasure chemical, it's the molecule of anticipation and effort. It's what gets released before you achieve something, not after. And when you attach dopamine to the process, to the reps, the study, the grind, you create an internal engine that doesn't depend on whether anyone claps for you or not. This is the difference between short-term hype and long-term momentum. If you only feel motivated when the scale moves, when you get praise, or when you hit a goal, your nervous system is wired for external validation. That system will fail you the moment progress slows down. But when you learn to link effort with reward, when your brain starts recognizing work as the win, then you can keep going even in silence. The key is to train your reward system to light up during the process, not just when things go well. That means noticing your own effort, saying to yourself, that was hard and I did it anyway. That means acknowledging the mornings you showed up, the hours you stayed focused, the temptations you resisted. Because every time you do that, you teach your brain, this is what we celebrate. Not just outcomes, but effort. That rewiring changes everything. Suddenly, you're not waiting to feel motivated. You create motivation by moving. Motion leads chemistry. Action leads emotion. You don't sit around hoping for drive. You build it. One repetition at a time. One friction-filled session at a time. And when you feel like quitting, that's the signal to go deeper. Because that's where the real transformation happens, on the edge of resistance. Look around. The people who win long-term aren't the ones who were the most hyped. They're the ones who fell in love with the process, who made the grind their home, not because it's glamorous, but because they've trained their system to crave forward motion. And you can do the same. It's not about personality. It's about conditioning. So stop chasing highs. Stop waiting for someone to hand you purpose. Show up, work hard, and let your motivation come from the fact that you're willing to do what most people avoid. Because when you learn to generate drive from effort, not outcomes, you become unshakable. Your energy is no longer at the mercy of results. It's built into the repetition. And that's when you're truly dangerous. Being underestimated isn't a weakness. It's an advantage. It's one of the most powerful psychological and biological positions you can occupy if you understand how to use it. Because when no one's watching, when no one expects anything from you, you're free. Free from the pressure to perform, free from the need to impress, and most importantly, free to focus, to build, to refine, without noise, without distraction, when people overlook you, they're giving you space. Space to train in silence. Space to fail without judgment. Space to grow without interference. Most people crumble under pressure because their nervous system is constantly in a state of alert, trying to manage perception, feedback, attention. But when nobody's looking, you can go deep. You can push your limits in private. That's where real transformation happens, beneath the surface, where the world can't see you yet. There's a neurobiological advantage to this. Your brain performs better when it's in a focused, internally motivated state. When you're not chasing external validation, Your dopamine system becomes more stable. That means fewer highs and lows, fewer crashes, and more sustainable drive. You're not waiting for likes, praise, or applause. You're building circuitry around the work, not the reaction to it. Being underestimated removes external pressure, and that gives your prefrontal cortex more bandwidth. That's the part of your brain responsible for focus, self-regulation, and long-term planning. When you're constantly worried about what others think, that bandwidth shrinks. You burn cognitive energy managing your image instead of managing your mission. But when expectations are low, you get to conserve that energy. You get to channel it where it actually matters. And here's the best part. When you finally emerge, it's too late for anyone to stop you because you didn't just build skills. You built systems. You built resilience. You built a neurological foundation that doesn't require hype to function. While everyone else was chasing attention, you were stacking reps. While they were talking, the ego wants recognition. The nervous system wants adaptation. You have to choose which one you serve. Let them underestimate you. Let them think you're not a threat. That gives you the runway to train without friction, to evolve without noise. And when you step out, when your work speaks for itself, it'll be undeniable. Because it wasn't built in reaction to applause. It was built through intention, silence, and consistency. So if they doubt you, good. If they ignore you, perfect. You don't need their permission. You need focus. You need friction. You need time under tension, mentally, physically, emotionally. And you don't get that when everyone's watching. You get that when you're underestimated, overlooked, and quietly obsessed. Use that space. Use that silence. That's your lab. That's your edge. And when the time comes, you won't need to prove anything. You'll already be the proof. Progress happens in silence. That's the truth most people don't want to hear. Because we've been conditioned to associate growth with visibility. If people aren't seeing it, then it must not be real. But the nervous system doesn't work like that. Biological change, whether it's muscle growth, skill acquisition, or mental toughness, starts beneath the surface, often long before the results show up. And that period of silence, of obscurity, is not a setback. It's essential. When you train, when you study, when you push through resistance with no audience, your brain is laying down circuitry. Neural pathways are being formed and reinforced, but that process is slow and non-linear. It doesn't care about your timeline or your need for validation. The brain isn't optimized for applause, it's optimized for efficiency. And efficiency is built through repetition, especially when no one's watching, especially when no one's clapping. The prefrontal cortex, which governs focus and discipline, thrives under quiet, deep work. That's when neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, is at its peak. But the moment you start chasing validation mid-process, you pull cognitive resources away from the task. You go from internal focus to external distraction, and the depth of your progress weakens because you can't build anything substantial if your attention is split between growth and perception. The irony is that the most powerful transformations look invisible until they become impossible to ignore. You might not feel like you're changing, you might even feel like you're stuck. But if you're consistently applying pressure, if you're showing up in discomfort, your nervous system is adapting slowly, quietly, relentlessly, and eventually the outputs catch up to the inputs. That's when the work becomes visible. That's when it speaks without you having to say a word. But you have to be willing to delay that recognition, to live in the space where your only proof of progress is effort, because that's where real power is built. You're not just getting better, You're becoming the kind of person who gets better regardless of feedback. That's how you hardwire resilience. That's how you earn internal momentum. And when the validation finally comes, because it won't define you. It will simply reflect what's already true. You won't need it because you've already proven everything to yourself. That's the goal, to get to a place where external approval is a byproduct, not a fuel source. Because once you reach that level, no one can take it from you. The world can't shake what it didn't build. So stay in the silence. Keep building, keep grinding, keep showing up when it's thankless, when it's invisible, when the only reward is knowing you're doing the right thing. That's where the real growth lives. That's where you separate. And one day, when the results are undeniable, the world will try to catch up, but by then you'll already be ahead because you did the work long before anyone cared. The truth is simple, but it's not easy. Nobody cares. Work hard and focus on you, not because it sounds good, not because it looks good, but because it works. Every repetition matters. Every silent session, every unseen effort, every moment you choose discipline over distraction, that's where you become who you're meant to be, not through noise, not through validation, through biology, through effort, through ownership. You don't need applause to be great. You need consistency under pressure. And if you can lock in on that, if you can commit to the process regardless of who's watching, you'll build something no one can take from you. Something real, something earned. Let them doubt. Let them sleep. You've got work to do.